All right, it's time for the June wrap-up, and for multiple reasons, I hope this is a more concise video. One, it's super, super warm. It's like 90 degrees and humid in this room right now. It's a lot. I really want to put my hair up, and for my own personal reasons, I like to film with my hair down and not up. It's all on me. But also, it wasn't a great reading month for a lot of reasons. I have read 9 things, and there were a lot of pages, and there were some truly great books. But there were also a lot of disappointing books and also a lot of fine books, and it just really wasn't like a great reading month, especially at the start. I think for the first 2 weeks I read 2 books, which for me has not been my reading momentum in years, even before BookTube. So, trying to turn that around. I've been having some more momentum near the end, but it still led to disappointments. And normally I do things in categories, and I truly was just uninspired when I looked at the 9 books, and I was just like, let's just talk about them in order. And could I have written it down? Yes, I could have made notes, and I did, and I left that sheet at home. So instead, I only own 2 of the books I'm talking about today physically, and I've used other books as placeholders to remind me when to talk about them. So, very chill video. Let's get into it. The first book that I finished was The Undocumented Americans, and this was a very, very, very good nonfiction. I highly recommend it to so many people to read. It is short, it is raw. So the author of this work, she narrates herself, and I listened to the audiobook. She is an undocumented American who got to use DACA, and she has a lot of opportunities that allow her to succeed and work on her writing, and she chose to write this book. It's not her first book or anything like that, but some things, that happened when Trump was elected caused her to want to write this and look into the stories of undocumented Americans, not just dreamers. And so not only do you get some of her life in this, there are memoir qualities, you also just get to look into what are some of the jobs undocumented immigrants have? How do they deal with healthcare? Why do they come here? What's their life like? And it's, like I said, a raw book. It is very meant to just show you what these humans' lives are and how much we do not treat them as fellow individuals. And immigration stuff is something that's really close to my heart. In general, people on my channel don't seem to come at me when I have like political views, but truly, if you disagree with me on immigration, don't come at me in the comments. I'm just gonna delete them. I'm very close to the topic, like extremely, and I really just disagree with how the United States handles immigration as a whole, especially because it has not been done consistently ever since we've been a country, and we never do it thinking about humanity, and it's a whole thing. I really wanted to read this. I'm really glad I did. It's 170 some pages. It's hard, it's heavy, it's raw, but I really do think that if you want to increase your empathy, increase your awareness of what people in our country go through who do not have easy access to documentation, easy access to the legal, correct path, you should check this out. So that was the first one. And then it took me much longer, but my first 2 books were audiobooks. I then listened to Foreigner, and this was a book I'd been really wanting to read. This is a classic sci-fi female author who's written so many books. I think over 80 books. I was looking on her Wikipedia page, and I started with this series, and if it doesn't end up working for me as I finish the first trilogy arc, because it's like an ongoing series that started in the 80s, but it's broken into trilogy arcs, so if it doesn't end up working for me, I am going to try maybe her fantasy, or I hear there's a different sci-fi series that someone who recommended me this as a subscriber likes more. So I haven't given up on this author, especially because the cultural focus of this sci-fi was really good. So this is for sure part of the inspiration for A Memory Called Empire, or I don't even know what happened, because I'm reading it and there's a lot of plot and theme points that are direct overlaps between the 2 books. And I love A Memory Called Empire. I have like a 20+ minute standalone spoiler-free review where I discuss all the themes and things that I love about that book. And I really like its sequel, A Desolation Called Peace. Foreigner was not a bad read, and part of it could have been my headspace or the fact that I did audio and didn't read it physically with my eyes, so I didn't get to be as immersed. But it didn't quite land with me with character connection and the things that overlapped with Memory Called Empire, like themes of isolation, how cultures can communicate and intertwine, all of those conflicts, like all of that. I liked better in A Memory Called Empire and didn't like here, and then the differences were just, I was more distant from the main character, and I don't like an isolated main character. That is probably one of my biggest complaints about A Memory Called Empire, is that Mahit is isolated for the most of it, and Bren in this is also very paranoid, very isolated. The premise is that in the far-off future, humanity was traveling through space and somehow got stuck on this planet, and the first couple sections are kind of generational, and then it sticks into a plot. And the plot is with this human who is the ambassador to this alien species who was on this planet first, and they're very humanoid. They're culturally very dissimilar, and evolutionary have been a little different, but they're bipedal, they're similar to humans, and he's their cultural ambassador liaison, and he is suddenly fearing for his life and trying to figure out who is on his side and who isn't and what is going on, because again, like Memory Called Empire, there's a big thing about language here, which is done pretty well. So I am going to continue, but in general, I just never felt super close to it, and I think part of it's my personal preference if I don't really like an isolated narrator, and it just, I don't know. I really do need to finish the trilogy and see how I feel and see if I need to pivot to a different work by this author, because I don't want to give up. They are so prolific in the classic SFF space. So that was the second thing I read. And then the third thing was this huge book called Grace of Kings. I have a review for this, so I'll try and be brief. I really did like this. I didn't love it. Like, it's not a 5-star. You probably see the star rating on the screen. I probably landed on like a 4 or something like that. And it was good. I'm really glad I personally had read Ken Liu's short stories before reading this, because I felt like I was really prepared for how he was going to approach the story. And I'm really excited to get to the sequel of this. I feel like this was a setup book. Truly, I say that in my review, that it's a setup book. It is a complete arc. Like, I'm not going to say that you couldn't just stop reading after this. You could. Like, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like, it does that. But I do feel that the payoff for me is going to come with later books in the series, now that I have this foundation, now that I think we've, taken the inspiration of our own history. We're now in a new world, we've used that inspiration, and now where are we going? Especially with the magic and technology. And I've heard that the next book reads more like traditional epic fantasy, which is, what I'm more used to. So I had a really good time. I think I had the time I expected. So this was one of the books this month that met my expectations. Was not lower, was not higher. I kind of expected it wouldn't be a favorite, but that I would appreciate it and have a good time. That's exactly what happened. If you want more thoughts, go check out my review. If you can't tell, I have like a stack of books here, and that's how I'm like reminding myself. So like this next one is not Dawn, but I have Dawn here because we're going to talk about Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. And I was really nervous going into this because this is a trilogy that was never finished. But I also was okay because I'm like, Octavia Butler always has complete books within her series, and they normally have generational jumps. That's like her thing. If there's like one plot-wise tropey thing she does is every book in a series normally will have a generational jump, or you are following a different character, same world, different focus. That's typically how she rolls. It's not a continuous narrative across a trilogy in a traditional sense. And that's what happens here. In the first book, we follow the diary entries of Laura, and in this one, we still continue those diary entries at a later date, but we also get 2 other diary entries to follow, and we get commentary from her daughter in the future reflecting on everything. So it's a different narrative framework that I think works a bit better. And I just enjoyed it and thought that it makes sense why it was so hard for her to want to finish the trilogy, but how to do the third book, because the duology feels complete as is to me as a reader. I'll also say that I liked this one a 1/2 star more than the previous one, Parable of Sower, and I see why this is the one that won the awards and not the first book in the series. This is the one that when people are talking about she predicted the future, that's this one. It's not the first one. And the audiobook for both of them works really well for me. I had trouble reading this book with my eyes. I start off reading with my eyes, and I've read almost every other Octavia Butler with my eyes and not with audio. But for some reason, because I think it's very reflective and sermon-like, I mean, there's a lot of, we're making our own religion to cope with survival and finding a new moral code to use to get through the end of days. That's kind of the vibe here. Is very much like, you can tell that this, whether intentionally or not, is a huge inspiration for Broken Earth. I read a lot of classic sci-fi that is apparently huge inspirations for some of my favorite stuff this month. And so it worked better with audio than physically reading because I think the flow just was better for me. So I enjoyed it. I think it really does do a lot more looking closely at things that I think people have issues with in the first book, and I think it does it in a satisfying way. So it's definitely not the last time I'm going to read this series, though. I think it's one that definitely grows on you, or like has more to take away from it, because it's a very themes heavy book. I mean, this one was more action packed and more horrendous in terms of things that happen to people. So definitely look up trigger warnings or anything if you are sensitive. I mean, I would say that for almost every Octavia Butler that I have read. They're all incredibly dark and have lots of topics like that. This next one is probably my highlight of the month, and I'm so glad I went off the TBR. Jessie May was going to start Locklands, and so I picked it up, and I read it, and it was amazing. Unfortunately, life stuff happened to her, so she hasn't finished it yet. I hope she gets to soon, because it's super fun. But in terms of, like, Robert Jackson Bennett is my favorite plot-based fantasy author. All of his books scratch that itch of, like, I just want a plot-based action movie good time. And he does it with a really good balance of character work and plot in like the small moments, and keeping me engaged and wanting to read, like so consumable. I think this might be my second favorite or my favorite in the trilogy. I'm not sure. Shorefall is really fun, but it's not my favorite. It's definitely my least favorite, although I regret not rereading it because for sure forgot things. Like, I thought I knew what happened, and I did. Like, I knew how the book ended, but not quite. I forgot some key world-building things. But man, Locklands was such a satisfying ending with some really interesting thematic commentary. I should make a Should You Read the Founders Trilogy review. I should get on that. If you're interested in that, let me know to, like, get me motivated. But I had such a good time. It stuck the landing. Like, I don't know if this was a 5-star read because it was perfect. Like, there were moments where I was like, man, I wish this was visual with the epic music that swells and stuff when this scene's happening, because he writes action very well. I just can be bored watching an action scene when I'm reading, when I don't have the visual cues or the music or anything like that you get in an action movie. But there was some really cool stuff, and the fantasy elements get taken to such a high level, you feel like you're reading a sci-fi book, which is so fun. I had such a good time. The creative ways these things were used, the mysteries that we've been holding on to for the first 2 books, and like learning more about this world and one of our characters and his past. It was good. I don't really have complaints other than, like, by my preference, some action scenes went on too long because that's not my cup of tea, but like, thematically, I got way more out of it than I thought I would, because normally, like I said, these are just kind of fun, and that's what happened to me with Divine Cities, too. He's a sneaky author. I wouldn't say he's the best at thematic work or character work or anything, but he's like, it's always just such a great quality product, if that makes sense. Another author that, like, I don't think would ever be a favorite of all time, but an auto-buy or an auto-read, at least, for sure, because I always know what I'm getting when I read them, and it's always a good time. Next up is a disappointment. Don't really want to talk about it. I've thought about making a video on it, and then I'm just like, but I'm so sad. And that's Seasonal Fears by Seanan McGuire. Like, I don't have a bad rating for it, I don't think, but like, I adore Middle Game, okay? Middle Game, 5-star, favorite of all time. I don't get to say that a lot. Like, I have a lot of 5 stars. I feel like I'm not too stingy with my 5 stars, but like the 5-star plus, the like, I will reread this forever, it is comfort food, gimme, like that type of favorite, that doesn't happen all the time. Those are rare, they are precious, and that's what Middle Game is to me, okay? I just reread it earlier this year, and it flies by. I'm so connected to the characters, and it's not even a perfect book. Like what I was saying with Locklands, there are moments in Middle Game where I'm like, why are we focusing on this? This is weird. But the other elements were so strong that I get so connected and so immersed. So I knew Seasonal Fears probably could not make it to that level, sure. But it's the same author, and it's a different duo who have, like, high-stakes situation that they have to get through together. And, like, I'm usually in for that, whether it's platonic, romantic, whatever. And I just didn't care about our main characters, which sucked because I really am not reading this series for the alchemy world. Like, that's not why I'm here. Like, it's fine. It's not a bad world, but it's not why I'm here. I did not pick this up to learn more about alchemy, which is weird because there are actual chapters in here called like exposition or explanation that are info dumps, and I am usually the person on BookTube who's like, give me the info dumps. That's me. I love a good info dump. I love understanding things. And it was fine, but this book suffers from a lot of repetitive nature in terms of the exposition and also character internal thoughts. Also, the character time between Harry and Mel is not equal, and not in a way that I thought was interesting. And it kind of, I think, suffers from when we meet these characters, they have already been best friends, lovers for 17 years, or not 17 years, but like the majority of their memorable life. They have known each other, been on each other's team. And so I didn't get to see that develop. And the way that it's shown to me, I didn't believe it. Like, I don't know how to put it. Like, I don't even think it's necessarily it was told and not shown. It's just that, like, I never felt invested in this pairing. I never cared about their love. I never cared about their friendship. And it also, even though they were together doing stuff, it felt like two individuals going through a thing together, not two people as a team leaning on each other and working with, like, there was very few conversations between the two. It was really weird. And it's a road trip story that was supposed to be a competition story. And if I don't care about characters, road trip stories don't work for me. So a lot of this is personal preference. And also, Middle Game's one of my favorite books of all time. Disappointment level. So yeah, I don't feel like I need to make a review. I feel like that's it in a nutshell. If you actually want a review, I could do it, but like, yeah, I'll still read more in this series just in case. Like, it's one of those situations where we captured that lightning in a bottle once for me with Seanan McGuire, and we haven't gotten to do it yet, again. But their backlist is so long, and if there is any chance I ever love any of the characters that are on page as much as I do Roger and Dodger, I have to keep trying, like, truly. This next one, I actually finished a trilogy, and that's The Dark Stars by Casey Berger. This is the third book in the Resonance trilogy, a trilogy I've been working on for like 10 months. And it was really fun, and I think actually like was just really solid and what I needed from an audiobook when I picked it up. The audiobooks are really good for this like small press series. I think you can only get them through Audible, unfortunately, but if you like get them with the ebooks, it's really not that expensive. Because that's what I was doing. I was getting the ebooks and the audiobooks together. And when I finished Foreigner, I needed an audiobook. And I was going to start Symbiosis. But Symbiosis is another type of first contact sci-fi that I think is more culturally thing. It's like, no, I want to read that with my eyes, or I'm just not in the headspace. So I wanted a different type of sci-fi. And this is more character-focused adventure, resistance, rebellion, sci-fi. And some of the theme stuff was a little on the nose. But I just liked being with this team of people. I thought the action was, action-packed where it needed to be. I thought the conclusion was sweet. It was a good time, satisfying conclusion. It was also just kind of cool to like read a trilogy by someone I went to college with. So there's that. I do, recommend it to people who like Star Wars and things like that. Like if you like resistance, rebellion, space operas like that, you should try this out. It's a really good small press indie version, really nicely written. Like, it's nothing groundbreaking, like I say in every video, but like the tropes it chooses to use and the characters on the team, it feels good. If that makes sense. It's cozy. It's a cozy rebellion space opera. So, I finished that, and that was, at least made me feel accomplished. And then I finished this next book, which took me a month and a half to read. Which isn't bad, but it was bordering on, I want to be done with this book now territory, and that's Fool's Errand by Robin Hobb. So long. I obviously I gave this 4 stars. It's a very good book. I think my issue is that because of plot conceits, Fitz was more isolated than normal, and as we talked about earlier, I'm really not into isolated characters that are in their heads all the time. Like, I want them to be with each other. And, like, the Fool's there as Fool's Errand, but they aren't allowed to interact like they normally would for a lot of the book because of plot stuff. And Night Eyes is there, but again, plot stuff. It's just like, okay. And then Fitz is both a very well-crafted character, like, truly a real human being on page, but has a lot of traits that I don't like to have in the characters I'm rooting for. And it's not even that he's a bad person, it's just that, like, he has flaws that I don't like to spend a lot of time with, or I like to look at from afar, and it's a first-person point of view story. And there's just, like, moments where, like, there's a dichotomy to Fitz, where he's both really wise and thoughtful and thinks things through and has a plan, and at the same time, he's an idiot. Like, then that's real. Like, so I have no complaints about the characterization of Fitz. My complaint is that I have to spend so much time with him. And it really did take, like, 500 pages for the plot to show up. Like, and again, it was kind of a road trip story. Which I didn't know was going to be a road trip story. I had no idea what this was going to be. All I know is that I read Live Ship, and I loved it so much, I bought these editions, and so I'm like, if there's any chance that I can have a Live Ship feeling moment again, I will continue Realm of the Elderlings, which was always the plan. But I guess I just was thinking maybe I wasn't in the right headspace when I read Assassin's Quest, and this will work better for me now, because now I am just like a Robin Hobb stan, and everything will be perfect, and it's very good, but it's not perfect. So it was kind of disappointing, but not like super disappointing. It's just more like I was hoping that I had evolved as a reader to be more like into the story that she's telling. Because I think she's telling the story she wants to tell very well. Not necessarily the story I wanted to read. And I was talking to Stephanie because we were kind of casually buddy reading. This is like, I know this kind of sets up the trilogy hypothetically, but I don't actually know where we're going from here. Like, if this had been like an epilogue book to the Farseer trilogy, I would have believed it. You know, like, I don't actually know, based off where this book ended, what the driving force of the plot is in the next couple books. And I'm sure I'll find out. No one needs to tell me. I'm going to read The Golden Fool. And I know The Golden Fool, at least by Mara and Leanna, really liked it way more than Fool's Errand. So I'm excited. It's just, I don't know. It took a long time. I think I felt as exhausted as our characters, which is probably the point. But sometimes, you know, I don't want it. I don't know. It's like, it truly is very similar to how I felt when I read Assassin's Quest, which again, look, it's 4 stars. I do not hate it. I'm just being mildly critical about a book. Just mildly critical. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings who, like, loves Farseer and, you know, fits and everything. And the last book that I finished at, like, 10 o'clock on the 30th of June is Daughter of the Moon Goddess. This was so fun. Not a favorite of all time or anything. I think the beginning way stronger for me than the end, but so fun. And I don't really know how to describe it. I had a really good time. It was pretty much exactly what I thought it would be. I would have liked to have a tiny bit more character interpersonal relationship like connection, but at the same time, like, I also thought, like, if it was a 50 to 100 pages tighter, it probably could have been a 4.5 or 5 star for me, just my preferences, because I think we have so many quality quiet moments in the first part. And then the second part is still pretty good, pretty well balanced. And I think the third part was just a little more action heavy for me than I wanted, but that's just me and my preferences. I still thought that the character development of our main character worked really well. I think handling how immortals would be was handled really well. Like, we have immortal characters, and how do you even relate to them as a mortal reading a book about immortals? And I thought it was handled really well how maturity would take different lengths of time. I thought the main character really felt like me at the age of 23, so I know a lot of people think this is like new adult or has young adult tropes or things like that. I truly saw myself, I mean, I guess from 7 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, 6 years ago, as the main character, who is figuring out what I do and don't want from love, what I am willing to sacrifice or compromise for certain relationships in my life, what are my dreams versus what I should be doing for responsibilities. Like, there were a lot of things that I really resonated with. And there were twists and there were turns that I did not see coming. Like, I truly did not see them coming, and that was really impressive to me. So I'm excited for the next book, and I actually probably will get a copy, because reading this was deciding if I wanted it or not, and it's really cozy. I will say, though, for people who immersion read, be warned, at least the audiobooks that I got a hold of, I think the narrator's reading the UK version, and I think just the UK and the US were edited by different people. There aren't huge differences, but there were enough that I don't normally notice that I was sometimes jarred. Like, but the narrator is phenomenal. Like, I would highly recommend the narrator. Like, the inflections, the pauses, male voices that I didn't hate from someone with a higher pitched voice narrating, like, it was exceptionally well done. Better than what my internal narrator was doing. So I was a really fun time, really glad I finally read that, and excited to see what happens in the second half of this duology. So, like I said, really, really extra mixed bag this month. It is what it is. They can't all be winners. But really hoping, based off, my TBR for July, that I've put a lot of things that I will be successful with and I will have fun. And also, it's just kind of nice that I've been feeling healthy. I'm done moving. I have gotten, read a lot of books that I started in May that were carryovers into June that were just really long reads. So I feel like I have a clean slate. It's going to be a good time. Let me know how your June reading month was. Was it slumpy like mine? Was it amazing and you did the 30 books in 30 days? Because I know some people do that in June. Where did you fall on that spectrum? If you want to leave an emoji, leave a moon for Daughter of the Moon Goddess. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.